The Avengers Infinity War and the Avengers Endgame, two major comic book film adaptations that were released back-to-back with much fanfare, are cinematic epics that act as capstones to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, molded and created with a ton of planning, effort, know-how, and a buttload of mostly good films leading up to it. It also garnered close to US $5 billion in box office sales, further cementing the fact that people love comic book adaptations when they're done with love and care. Surely a video game adaptation of the most successful and story-rich properties in comic book history in an industry that brags about netting double the revenue that films and music combined would just be as magnificent and noteworthy, especially if it's backed with a big budget and renowned talent. What could possibly go wrong?
It'll look like where it doesn't matter.
Good lord, what the fuck? Okay, so games based on comic book movies may not have the best track record for quality. And talking about said garbage fires and funny book failures is too easy a target. To offset the bad news that's been going around as of late, let's talk about positive things for this video. Let's touch upon the good adaptations to wash that really sour microtransaction live service laden taste out of our mouths. We seriously need a palate cleanser from the past. So, here are some good examples of developers doing comic book and comic book movie games right from the way back when till now. In a sea filled with a ton of beat 'em ups, you need that je ne sais quoi to stand out back in the late 80s and early 90s. With Final Fight, it was 3 different characters with unique playstyles and an amazing Capcom score. With Streets of Rage, it was cramming all of that into a 16-bit machine and creating a legacy soundtrack. When you're Data East, you just adapt one of the most prominent Marvel teams into a game. No, not the one Konami called dibs on, although that's pretty cool.
Welcome to die.
We're talking about Captain America and the Avengers for the arcade and for the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. A simple yet fun beat 'em up where you control any one of the following: the title Super Soldier, Iron Man pre-Robert Downey Jr., Silver Vision, and Hawkeye, arguably the coolest Avenger ever. It was 4-player co-op beat 'em up fun, with some 2D shmup segments thrown in for good measure. And you weren't just fighting one faction of villains. Oh no, you fought the whole Rogues Gallery, from Whirlwind to Grim Reaper to motherfucking Ultron and Crossbones. The final boss is Red Skull, who fights you with a giant boss robot as per requirements in the 90s arcade title. It wouldn't be much fun to have 4 superpowered beings beating up a bad guy in a business suit who has a skin condition and radical beliefs, right? So yeah, co-op fun, escalating challenge, lovely colors and sound, doesn't crash on you, and features the best soundbites known to human ears.
See my power!
What's not to love? There were a ton of Batman games back in the late 80s and the whole 90s. Some of them were pretty bad. But there are some gems, like the NES Batman game, which turned the Caped Crusader into a sort of 90s Ryu Hayabusa archetype, weapons and all. But the adaptation I remembered the most is the Sega Mega Drive Batman movie game, also from Sunsoft. It was probably the graphics and the amazing soundtrack that hooked my attention, but mostly the platforming and action was really solid. You punch, you use the batarang, you do this nifty bat somersault that can also damage enemies, your jumps can even kill a dude. The other segments like the 2D driving and Batplane bits also impress. Overall, a solid effort backed up by awesome 16-bit blast processing. Another 2D Batman game that comes to mind is The Adventures of Batman and Robin. No, not the SNES one, not the Sega CD one either. I'm talking about the co-op game made by Clockwork Tortoise Inc., who were basically made up of people formerly from Danish company Zyrinx. This Batman game was essentially a run-and-gun shooter a la Gunstar Heroes, except with the difficulty cranked up right at the second stage. Holy hand grenades! I cannot begin to describe how many times I've died before reaching the Joker the first time I played this. This Batman game is merciless and brutal, but it was also gratifying, had some neat stage gimmicks and sections, and a banging soundtrack from the same guy who brought you masterpieces from the Hitman and Assassin's Creed series. Just steel yourself for the countless deaths you'll be experiencing. If you want a game that makes you feel like an actual engine of destruction and deserves that overused game journalism quote,
Makes you feel like you're Batman.
it's this one. Made by the kinda defunct Radical Entertainment, Hulk Ultimate Destruction is essentially an open-world sandbox action game. But you're the Hulk. That's all I need to know, and that's all there is to it. And man, it is so much fun. Just going to town futzing around and causing mass destruction. as well as giving Hulk plenty of upgrades to destroy the military and the Hulk's rogue gallery supervillains with. You know back then how limited it was to play a criminal who's just human despite all the weaponry and the toys and the vehicles you get? Well, you have the Hulk, and by God, I kinda wish they brought this kind of gameplay and freedom back. Too bad we got this piece of crap from Sega years after. X-Men Origins Wolverine is an incredibly bad film that does disservice to the Fox X-Men movie franchises. The video game adaptation, on the other hand, that's what I'm talking about. It's essentially a hack and slash not unlike your Devil May Cry's and God of War clones, complete with an R rating, all developed by Raven Software. You play Hugh Jackman Wolverine doing the best at what he does, all without the PG bullshit from the movie, which means those claws and its healing factor aren't just for show. Sometimes you just want to extend your adamantium claws and go to town like Logan did in that self-titled End of an Era movie, but multiple times, in gameplay form. The X-Men Origins Wolverine game will sate that bloodlust and then some. Now, these games I recommended are pretty old and kinda tough to find. You may need to play them via other means. How about some recent fares you can acquire legally? There's the Batman Arkham Trilogy you can get right now for PC and other consoles. Too many folks have praised these games, so I won't touch upon them that much. Even the weakest among the trilogy, the Arkham Knight, still impresses with its scope, mandatory completionist true ending, and stealth missions involving the Batmobile. Sneaking missions with a big-ass car. Bet you didn't see that one coming. There's also Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Yes, it's rather sad that the formerly multi-platform game is a Nintendo Switch exclusive. But to the benefit of those console owners, you get a way better Marvel group-based beat-em-up that's rewarding and more complete and variable than, well, you know. You get to form groups of 4, create combinations of teams that give passive buffs like an all-girl cosmic team or all X-Men past and present. Or just go with monster killers like Blade and Bloodstone. Talk about freaking obscure. The technical and grindy aspects need work, but for the most part, it's a brawler that works and is fun for all. Last but not least is Marvel's Spider-Man game. It's a very obvious choice, but it was our 2018 Game of the Year voted by the KKP staff for a damn good reason.
Strives to make you feel like Spider-Man.
It's well made level design-wise, the web swinging and traversing in the Big Apple is really fun, the combat is fast and furious as well as combo-tastic, and the visuals give the characters and story, life and personality unique to this tale. Hell, I'll even recommend you guys and gals to get the remastered version for the PS5 if you're one of the lucky few who pre-ordered the machine, even if the remastering has Peter Parker looking like discount Tom Holland. And that is it for a positivity-laden guide to the best video game adaptations of comic book movies and properties. If you think we're missing a few other noteworthy gems, let us know. And do subscribe and get notified of our video game content going-ons. We post new features and gameplay every week. And with that, I'm signing out, true believers.
Exo!